I'm a singer, songwriter, and vocal coach. I've been singing since I was 7 years old, born into a family of music lovers. My father was a venerable, my mother was the wife of a pastor, so my place was in church and in choir. And I grew into that. I was a member of many singing groups, but then I got into school and I realized that I had a flair for sciences and arts. So I studied electrical electronics engineering in the University of Lagos. I came out with a 2-2, not so bad for a music lover. And all of my time in university, music saw me through. I realized even when I was in school that I love to help people with their voices. So I corrected some of the issues that people had with their voices. And throughout all that process, with God's help, I landed on one of the biggest musical competitions in Nigeria, MTN Project Fame West Africa, as the vocal coach, and I've been there for 9 years. My name is Ige. This is how I got here. I think all my life I've been doing this. I've been singing. Like I started singing since I was 7 years old. My sister was my first mentor. She could sing and play the keyboard. I always wanted to sing like her and to be in the arts like her. She also studied theatre arts in University of Ibadan. So it was my, aspiration. And my family was just a huge inspiration to me. You know when they say, if you weren't doing this, what else would you have been doing? If I wasn't doing music, I would be doing music, really. But then in all of that, I also realized that I had a scientific part or side to me. I studied electrical electronics engineering. In fact, in secondary school, it's weird. I did literature and then I did physics, chemistry, and biology. And then I dabbled into a bit of further maths. I did technical drawing. So it was weird, when you have someone who does an art subject and then all sciences, but it was a passion of mine. My dad had the complete book of William Shakespeare. That was just a huge thing for me, So I got into university, I studied elect. My late brother also was an inspiration to me on that side. He studied mechanical engineering and I said, well, I could do it, but all my life, music was a constant. I was always in singing groups. I was always going out, even during school. Don't do that. Don't cut out. But I was always singing. And it really kept me sane. Jesus and music kept me sane throughout, university. So before the fame, I'd been doing this. I had a friend who forced me to give him the first vocal class that, I'll call my very first vocal class. He's a rapper. His name is Ami. He was previously called Proverbs. And he said, you know what, Ige, you're giving me my class today. And that process really helped me to work out the chinks, and then from there I started getting students. So I felt very comfortable in my skin, helping people with their voices. And through a series of events and prayers, I got a call from MTN Project Fame West Africa and I've been there for 9 years. Yes, I started singing quite early. I started singing when I was 7 years old. But then my father, I always go back to my family. He is right now a retired Anglican priest. But then when he was still in active service, I was going we're always being transferred from one church to the other, and I was going from one choir to the other. And that was like my training process, going from one choir to the other, going from one singing group to the other. So it was as though I had training as I went along, as I grew. I had training. Life, my singing groups trained me. The choirs that I was a member of trained me, And then I also did a couple of courses at the Muson Center. But before then, even with all of these trainings, so to speak, I'd been making money. I'd performed at concerts. I had done a couple of months at the FRSC choir, Lazio Kweme Chorale, Steve Rhodes Voices. So for me, it was a journey, and it wasn't as though I sat down in a school and I was taught music. But everywhere I found myself, in every choir, it was training for me. Not being able to go by myself because I was still very young. So I had to have my brother, and my brother was very good to me, Shegun. He always took me to these places because he could sing too, so it was good. I mean, he was one that introduced me to Liza Kweme Chorale. He was one that took me to the FRSC choir, So that was that. But when it comes to, did my parents support me? Yes, they did, because they also came from musical backgrounds, But I think my challenge then was maybe my age, because I couldn't do it myself. Somebody had to always be there for me, and that was quite stifling. Okay, so my first audition, that would be Liza Kweme Chorale, if I remember very correctly. And how did I hear about it? I mean, I'd always known that Liza Kweme Chorale existed. He started off with first the full choir, then just the men's voices. My brother was a part of it. But then then I used to go with him just for rehearsals. So I was the only girl in the full choir of men, but I never sang. I used to sing just to myself, but it was just fun being in the midst of them. So when Laz now said he wanted to come to put the full choir back together, that was the opportunity. My brother had to just drag me in. So I sang for him. But was I nervous? Yeah, maybe a little, because here I was singing in front of a professor of music. But for me, this was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And every time I took the stage, I owned the stage. So I sang like I didn't care, and of course I made the choir. And that time of my life was one of the most interesting periods of my life, because I had rehearsals every week. We had to go there every week. We had concerts in different parts of Nigeria. And it was just fun traveling with people of like minds and doing classical music. I mean, what better way? It couldn't get better than that. As young as I was, I actually did start making money. So it was so much fun knowing that you could make money off something that you could rather do for free. Yeah, because I loved to sing. And to tell you how bad it was, even after the whole how many months of being in the FRSC choir, I didn't pick up my check because that was not my lookout. I just wanted to sing. I wanted to sing, So yeah, and when I realized that you could actually make money from doing stuff that you love to do, there was no turning back from there. The time when I started doing my own music, as in going professional, was, I think I was just about to finish secondary school. Yeah, I think I was either my last year or I had just finished secondary school. And of course, everything was church. I had some guys there who were musicians who thought, hey, you have a good voice. Why don't you just put something together? And I had been writing songs. So then it was just a nice practice for you to just get a melody, write a song, try and build it up, things that people pay for now, as a singer or songwriter. We just used to do it, my brothers and I, write songs. So I put the songs together. We got a producer and, got into the studio, did a bit of tweaking. My parents fully supported because, like I said, our lives were musical. So yeah, it was cool. So you could do this. And my first album is called Oba Iyanu. It's cool. It means God of Miracles, And that was the title track. Then we used to do title tracks. So that was the title track, Oba Iyanu. And it was a cool thing. We had this huge launch at Archbishop Vine Memorial Church where my father was the vicar, then. And that was the first. From there, it was, the rest is history. Wrote my songs, or got into situations where I had musicians all around me. We were always singing and always making music. And it was a cross between classical and contemporary. I started off strict classical, but then the album wasn't so classical. So it was fun. We listened wide at home. We listened to high life, jazz, R&B, you name it. In fact, we did a bit of Fela. I still remember those days when we used to listen to Fela in the car going to school. Yeah. So yes, that was my very first recollection of going professional. Preparing for performances for me is both physical and mental. Physical in the sense that I warm up a lot. I learn the songs. Practice, practice, practice. You cannot go too far as a musician or as an artist without practicing. And practicing the right thing. So I get the songs, get the right keys, make sure that before I even begin to go into the meat of the song, I do vocal warm-ups, because your vocal folds are like muscles. You have to stretch them just to prepare them for what you will have to do. And then it's also mental. So I use my mind to create the environment I want to see. So, and I do that a lot if I'm probably going to a place where I haven't been before. So I'm wondering, how would they receive me? How would they receive my music? So I sit down, and for just a few minutes, I don't sing anything. I use my mind. I see myself on stage. I see myself singing, doing my style, doing my thing, the spotlight on me. And I see people really use your mind to create the world. I see people receiving, my songs, receiving my performance or my ministration or whatever it is. Sometimes in my mind, I hear them gasp. Oh my gosh, did she just hit that note? Because it keeps me calm. I focus on that so that I don't think about anything negative. I don't think about I'm falling off the stage or my skirt is ripping or, crazy things like that. So, and then the feeling I would have felt just doing that, I bring it into the present. So it keeps me calm, I drink a lot of water. Water is life. Water is bae, like we say now I drink lots of water just to keep myself hydrated, keep my voice hydrated. And then I just relax. I try as much as possible to relax. I do deep breathing because that helps to eliminate tension, and fear. And I just keep my mind in the right place. So for most people, they tend to focus more on rehearsal, but they never use their minds to create what they want to see on that stage. So I do both, and I've not had a terrible performance since, so I guess it works. The Project Fame story is a very interesting one, because after I finished school, the university, I was always singing, and then I had already dabbled into vocal coaching. I had even done a couple of workshops, voice training workshops here and there in a couple of churches, just to get the ball rolling. But I realized that to make any kind of huge impact, you needed one of the biggest platforms. So my husband and I kept praying and kept, using our words to create the environment we wanted. What did we want? We wanted to be on any of the musical shows as vocal coach. Because at that time, it wasn't a popular thing to be a vocal coach. Now, everywhere you turn, everybody wants to be a vocal coach. But I feel like by God's grace, we kind of like opened the way. It was tough. We had to stick to it. And then Project Fame started. I had a friend on the show, Ben. I had a couple of friends, but Ben Ogwenwi and I have been friends forever. We were in almost all the same singing groups when we were growing up, And it was fun to watch it. But of course, we kept at it, kept praying, kept making, positive confessions and speaking and saying, you know what, we're creating this world. We are going to be a part of it. And the following season, we received a call telling us that, we should come in to, discuss my role as the vocal coach of MTN Project Fame. And it was a huge thing. And this is 9 years ago. I've been on the show for 9 years, and it's been getting better and better. Challenging, of course, because what I can do in my backyard and feel very relaxed, you're asking me to do in front of millions of people, not just in Lagos or Nigeria, but in the entire West Africa. And we actually get people watching from everywhere else. Russia, America, we've gotten weird calls saying, oh my gosh, I watch you. You're really keep up the good work from. I'm like, are you for real? From Russia? Thank God for the internet. So that is how we were able to get it. We didn't just pray, we kept working. So I still kept on taking my one-on-one classes. I still kept on trying to help with choir trainings and things like that. You don't sit down and fold your arms. You keep working if you're believing God for something. So when you prepare and Providence opens the way, you have what you're looking for. So talking about my most challenging work. I was actually going to say that my present album that I'm just putting finishing touches to was my most challenging. But I realized that it really isn't. I think the one that has been most challenging was the workshops that I just concluded, the voice training workshops that I just concluded. We've been doing workshops all around, but this time was on a larger scale. We were doing workshops back to back every week in 2 centers. And so the coordination, the logistics, the workshops were voice training workshops. So they're tagged Find Your Voice with Ige, and it's a vision that we were giving a while back, just to do pockets of workshops, voice training workshops to help people, singers, songwriters, choristers, speakers, anyone that uses his or her voice to make money or to earn a living, just to help them out, because most people don't know that your voice is the only voice you ever get. To speak, to shout, it's a goal. To shout, praise the Lord, to talk to your kids, and wear and tear sets in. So if this is what you do professionally, how do you manage your voice? This particular workshop, 2017, Find Your Voice with Ige, was a bit of a challenge because we had to do in 2 different centers, and we had huge crowds. So the logistics of breaking them into groups, of running from one group to the other, making sure that everyone is on the same page, hoping that you are getting positive feedback. Are people actually learning? How do you manage the crowd? It was an interesting experience, but for me it was a bit challenging. It was a bit challenging. My best track. I actually really love this album that I'm working on. It's called The Symphony of Psalms and Hymns. I have a rich culture of hymns. My father, Anglican priest, we grew up on hymns. Our morning devotion was always hymns. Our evening devotions, we sang hymns. And I realized that hymns are sermons. They are messages. So going to church, it was like you were hearing 6 sermons in a day, because 5 of those sermons were hymns. And if you just take a hymn and meditate on it, your life there's a hymn for everything. So I decided that, this generation that we're in, they're losing touch on hymns. They don't understand hymns. They think they're boring. So I got this inspiration to do hymns in such a way that young people will really, really love to do hymns again. And putting it on a platform where they would listen to it, and by doing so, get blessed by the hymns that they're listening to. So it was so much fun. And apart from that, it was so much fun because we're doing it live. It was a live recording. So I got the instrumentalists together, the singers. We explained the vision of the album to them. So we worked out a plan, and then we hit it live, and it was so interesting. Yes, we had a bit of a challenge trying to gather money together, because even though it's easier, so to speak, it still costs what it costs. So we had to source for funds, but it was a joy just doing this album. And I can't wait for it to come out. I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. Successful people do every day what unsuccessful people do once in a while. For you to be an artist, to have sustainability, you've got to keep up on some habits. Practice. Practice, practice, practice. I cannot overemphasize that. I practice all the time. I probably annoy the whole house with my warm-up exercises, my trills, my vocal warm-up CDs. It's so, you've got to imbibe that habit of practice, and I practice all the time. I sing classical music, I do jazz, that's one. Okay, so as an artist, what do you listen to? I listen wide, and that helped me a lot when I was growing up. So you listen to a different song every day. Yeah. I was born into the classical field, but music is wider than that. Music is a language. So you want to be able to update on your listening, your flavor. Yeah. As a singer and as a songwriter, your words are your tool. How do you come in contact with words, with new words? Read them in a book. So if you say you are a songwriter and you haven't opened a book in a long time, you check out a different profession. Read a book. I have voice training books. I have musical books. I have storybooks. I love to read. I love to come in contact with words. Health habits. Gym. Oh, you want longevity. If your body doesn't function anymore, guess what? You die. And then there's no more art. There's no more you sharing your gift with the world. So stay healthy. Fruits and vegetables. Water. How many health things have I? How many habits have I said now? Read. Practice. Listen. And be healthy.